figuring that out.
Luckily, I got a phone call and I did get a chance to sit down in the recliner chair. She
Jeff, would you want to do prayer tonight? Okay. Stop and do pledge.
sure will.
County Extension Agent.
Yes.
What do they do? Probably a lot.
She's gonna be in Kentucky.
Okay.
Well, no, Virginia gonna be. They, come out there.
I really hope,
Now, what do you
I'd
think?
like to see them the best thing that happened to them is get these out. But anyway, we're seeing it in November.
Distributors out of Lutheran.
Third
And,
round.
second ship. So you
First
guys-
round.
It's gonna hurt that
First time in
history or weather. Yeah, they locked me in there one day, they thought I was flying for about 2 hours.
You don't think Brett all that, hair all that.
You got that? I laughed.
So we want to stay on this.
This morning, I couldn't feel it. Did you see Keith Hall?
Well, I'm not, I figured that is retired there, and, so I could kind of look at it a little bit, or something.
So what's,
Yeah. Oh, wow. So we play up there, okay, yeah, we, my grandson, I took him up there and just played.
here, Travis?
I guess.
I got it. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's, yeah, it's not, you know,
That'd be the place to look.
We're supposed to go.
Oh, yes.
yeah.
I haven't known, I've got some old.
I guess you're pretty good at it.
No. Well, depends on the day.
Well, now,
I shoot 73,
Tried at the time or two.
73, now, that's good.
That's good, yeah.
I like
don't
that.
do that often.
That's good, yeah, if you can do that, wow.
Philip, you doing all right this evening?
Yeah, I guess you feel like a member up there.
Okay, good discussion.
Until you got,
Gonna have Cheryl
Yeah.
get a hold of you,
When they,
John.
all right.
it ain't when they go.
You don't have any anything else, do you?
There might be somebody here talk to the district.
Yeah, because you got all days on this.
Okay. Used to.
Yeah.
And the work like weekends, you know, like what would that be opening for yesterday? All come over 6 or 8 away, I didn't play. I hate a lot, they bring to the,
You know what, it's that ball, it's not everybody in the world, because they're going to run it.
Yeah.
This early ball, they never expect that.
2 inches of snow on the ground.
Oh,
Played
But,
by several,
you know,
it's got it. Well, it is 7 o'clock, and that's what we've got as advertised time for a meeting. We are in a different location from City Hall today, so I saw KK was first one away, and she made it to the right spot. So.
I went to the wrong spot.
You went to the wrong spot? No? Okay.
The empty parking lot was a big queue.
Big queue on that. So with that, we'll go ahead and start. And first of all, I'll have the pledge. I'll stop Mom and we'll hold the pledge. And then Jeff Souter will lead our prayer. All right, that's it. Will you please stand and remove your hat?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Father who art in heaven, we come before you now, Father, thanking you for this day, and we thank you for all the many blessings that you've so richly showered down upon us. We ask, dear Heavenly Father, that you please guide our words, guide our thoughts, guide our actions this evening. May our decisions that are made be in accordance with thy will. We ask that you always continue to guide us so that all that we do here is to glorify you. This This evening, dear Heavenly Father, we ask you please be with the sick, especially those of our friends and family. Please be with those hands who are ministering unto them. And give them a peaceful night's rest. Help them to be restored to a normal portion of health. We ask you please be with us when we depart from this place. Keep us safe as we go to our individual homes. Forgive us of our sins, and all this we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Okay, first we'll have roll call.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I see that Urban Day and Adam DeVore, 2 members absent, leaving us with 7.
We have quorum to do business then.
We do.
Noted.
And Urban Day is here.
Urban Day's here, okay. Okay, minutes that were sent to you. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes?
I will object to any additions or corrections to the minutes because it's already typed up. I've sent them out last week and asked people to notify me if they had any. So, thank you.
Philip Marshall has made the motion to accept. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Scott has made the second. Scott Monlin. We'll take it for discussion. Seeing no discussion, take to a vote. All in favor of ratifying the minutes, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carried. Okay. Old business, the status of the appointed position. We have our new position. I'll let Philip introduce him through the commissioners.
I want to welcome Mark Hartman. Mark lives out on Painter Lane, new to our community. We're going to ask that to the county, and we've asked him to fill in this spot.
Glad to have you aboard. Okay, so the position has been filled. That's the only vacancy we had in that. Next is KK Gerhard Fritz, a review of our ordinances. So right into business there, KK.
All right. Well, what I kind of want to do tonight, we're really going to get down to it a little bit later with the Board of Zoning Appeals and talk about the rules of procedure. But kind of as an introduction, let me talk about the tools that you use to do your job as Plan Commission members, and some of you, which one of you are BZA members also? Yeah. So some of you wear a couple of hats there, and then those of you that are the county commission representatives also get to work at this a couple times. But the tools that every plan commission needs to do their job are a subdivision ordinance, a zoning ordinance, a comprehensive plan, and rules of procedure. Those are like 4 magic things, and I apologize, wasn't sure what our setup would be, so I don't have an overhead tonight. But everyone should have a copy of those 4 things. The zoning ordinance, the subdivision ordinance, the comprehensive plan, and the rules of procedure. And the comprehensive plan, as you know, is kind of a guideline that says here's the direction we're going to go in the future. The zoning and the subdivision ordinance are the actual laws that tell you what the local regulations are, and the state of Indiana allows each community to set their own local standards, which is pretty tremendous. There are a few exceptions, but for the most part, they let us use our home rule and set our standards so that your standards won't be the same as Bloomington standards or Gary's standards or Benson's or Hendricks County or other places. Everyone can set their own unique standards. And then we have this other thing that we're going to talk about later tonight, the rules of procedure. And those tell us how you specifically do your tasks as Plan Commission members or BZA members. So what we're going to start talking about, and one of the things that I'm going to work with you on this year is kind of doing some tune-ups to those 4 tools that you have, so that they become easier not only for you to use, but for the public to use and developers to use, etc. And so what we want to start a discussion with tonight is to talk a little bit about your zoning ordinance. And we're going to be spending, and this is not something we're going to solve in one night, but when I got into this, I took a look at this and thought that there are probably some things that we could do that could make it a little bit easier to do. Some of them are organizational things, just putting things in a slightly different organizational manner, using tables, things like that that'll make it a little bit more user-friendly. Those things are not real hard to do, and they don't take a lot of work. But there are also some things that we're going to need to add to it. And probably the biggest piece that I see that's missing from it, and maybe what we could kind of start to talk about tonight, is the section of the ordinance that really talks about the administration of the zoning ordinance. Who does what? Whose responsibility is it to determine when a permit is issued and to issue that permit? Whose responsibility is it to initiate enforcement? And how does that work? Those details are kind of a really big gap that I see when I look at your ordinance. And I think Tom and I had a little bit of discussion about that. And that's one thing. Another thing that I've seen is that one of the basics that I think we need are good definitions when we're looking at things, when we're trying to decide, does that fit in that category? How it's defined in the ordinance can help determine us where we put a use, for example, things like that. So that's another one that I see that we'll probably need to do some tune-up to. Since you guys are more familiar with actually using this than me, what I wanted to do is take a little bit of time tonight before I go off in my own direction. I'm always a little leery of somebody who walks in cold turkey, doesn't know anything, and tries to change things. So I've looked at it, and just from good practice kind of standpoints, I have some ideas on the user friendliness and the missing administration piece and the definitions, but I'd kind of like to hear a little bit of discussion from you about what pieces you think we really need to work on, where some of your frustrations have been, what's in there that's working well and that you like and you'd rather I not tinker with. Again, each community is different, so I would really appreciate if we could just have some discussion about that.
You want to go ahead?
Yeah, I'll start, thank you. KK's right, we talked about this, and one of the things I think, the last thing we need to probably look at is our point system and actually the substantive aspects of the confined feeding operation controls. The things that concern me, because that's where all of our focus was.
Yeah.
Frankly.
And that was based on the model, the state model kind of originally, is that right?
I don't know that it was. We went through 2 or 3 different versions of it.
Okay.
We kept scrapping and going back to the drawing board, and there was a rather intensive effort that went into that. And then we tested it against existing operations
Right.
to see how they would come out in the scoring, and adjusted our point system, et cetera. So that's probably the area of least concern.
Okay.
What bothers me is that we didn't spend a whole lot of time talking about the things you talked about, the enforcement, who does what.
Right.
There's some lack of clarity, I'd say, and suppose someone comes along and has a new operation. Travis, in his role as the plan director, would go out and take a look at it. Does that come before us or not? There's talks about a fine in there for non-compliance. How is that enforcement really done? I think there's just a catch-all phrase that says the Washington County Sheriff is responsible for enforcement. But I think even a larger area that I'm concerned about is let's get outside the realm of livestock operations. We have sections for special exceptions and permitted uses that we've had people come in And we didn't really talk about this. Our focus was so much on trying to get through the livestock portion of it, that what if something falls in a gray area, what do we do? And that's been my biggest concern, because since we enacted this ordinance, we've had a few people come before us, and a couple of them have been really clear, and a couple of them haven't been clear. And to fumble with that is something I would like to see us avoid doing in the future.
You mentioned the gray area, and this is something I talk to clients about a lot. If I wrote a zoning ordinance that covered every possible eventuality out there, it would be as big as the tax code, it would be huge. So you're going to have to try to hit most of the situations there. And depending on the community, it's going to be bigger or smaller, depending on if you've got lots of different land uses. Counties typically aren't as complicated as cities because you don't have quite as many land uses going on, that kind of thing. But there will probably be a certain amount of gray area. And some communities are very comfortable with that, and comfortable with having interpretations made by staff. And, hopefully eventually maybe they amend the ordinance to reflect that interpretation, or it goes in a policy book or something like that. Other communities would much prefer as much black and white as possible, and tie things down as much as you can. And I tend to like as much black and white as we can get, because in these days where people like to go online and look at ordinances and things, I think we want to take out as much confusion as we can early on with what's expected and who does what and how it's done. So my preference would be also to take out some of that gray that's in your ordinance right now, where it's just not real clear who does what. That's a good point.
But otherwise, we haven't had a great deal of experience. It's a relatively new ordinance, and there's not a lot of activity.
As far as, the interpretation, of the rule, like every scenario, I guess that we have to have certain guidelines and use the comprehensive plan as far as what the true vision of that comprehensive plan is going for. That ought to be our point.
Right.
That we're looking out if we have to make an interpretation.
Yeah, absolutely. That's part of that package of 4 things that should all be working together: the ordinances, the comp plan, and the rules. So that's absolutely true. So as we start to tie down some of this gray area and try to, like on the special exceptions, for example, try to come up with some criteria for the special exceptions that you can use to help make decisions. We look back then at some of those documents like the comprehensive plan and maybe start to draw some things from the intent there that we can use to set up as some of that criteria. So it's all tied together if we do it right.
But I guess where we're, one thing that I felt like we had left out, a little bit, is that whenever we worked with land use, the biggest thing we were working with was confined feeding operations. And of course, a lot of our talk was back to schools and residences and that kind of thing. But, schools is an easy enough definition, but a rural agricultural residence or even a subdivision, that we really, other than dry verbiage that say that they've got to inhabit that for 6 months of the year, and for density purposes, on our half mile, we had described it that way. But we never did in the ordinance really describe what an agriculture, because we only have 2 districts.
Right.
And so we really haven't identified that other component, per se in the ordinance, I don't think.
Yeah. So that's, again, I think you're right, a lot more definitions to start looking at some of these uses that are in the ordinance and starting to pin some of that down a little bit. So even though you only have 2 zoning districts, there's a heck of a lot of land uses that you still have to deal with those 2 zoning districts. And so from what I'm hearing from you, we need to turn some attention to some of those other land uses and try to tie those down a little bit more,
Yeah, because we have periodically car lot dealerships that have come in and asked for licensing, off of the Planning Commission. We have somebody who wants to start up a winery or some type of agricultural tourism type of operation, and they have to sign off with a state document in there. And sometimes they're deferred back, to us. And, we basically said, well, we really don't have that truly identified that you're acceptable,
Yeah,
and that's it.
yeah. Okay, I can help with that.
Okay.
Yeah, I can definitely help with that, so we can work on that. How about, you haven't had a chance to use this a lot, I know. Anything any of you can think of, though, that have caused you frustration, even as you're trying to just read through it and get familiar with the document? Anything that you would like clarified or illustrated or explained better?
One thing is on our map, basically what we did was, if you look at how we defined our zones, it was every incorporated unit
Right.
was designated as residential, and everything outside that was agricultural, which then begs the question of what's our authority within those. We have no residential code right now. You'll see that it goes from 700 to 701. There's nothing under the 700, which is our residential.
Right.
So to what extent do we address those? It was a convenient way for us to exclude those and address only the agricultural. And I think going back to permitted uses and special exceptions, I think that we just coughed out two lists, and to me they're ambiguous. Some of these were easy. To me, the car lots are easy. All they need is, once they know that we have a plan commission, the state wants to know, are they in compliance with our zoning ordinance? And the answer is yes, because
Yes,
in a
yeah.
retail business, it's pretty clear.
Right.
We have nothing to prevent them. But if you get into, when there's a qualifier, suppose we have manufacturing, and then it says hyphen, meat, dairy, agricultural, or furniture products. Well, what if it's basket weaving? Does that mean it's excluded because we chose to define it 4 ways and exclude other manufacturing? What if it's someone building mini barns? Is that included or not? Because we have these descriptors, these
Right.
qualifiers. So this farms, fiber, grain, fruit, vegetables, livestock, poultry, etc. I guess the et cetera helps, but a lot of these, I think, need definition or need some clarification.
Yeah.
Well, I've never liked the way we had the manufacturing thing limited. I think it should have been more of a blanket thing like the retail business thing, because I don't think that anybody in Washington County wants an ordinance that is going to limit entrepreneurial industry in the county to anything, you know what I mean? I don't think that's what Washington County wants.
There's kind of 2 different things we can talk about with this. One is uses, whether we want to limit the uses or not. And then the other one would be, what kind of standards should we have for different kinds of uses? Should there be minimum driveway standards if you're a manufacturing facility? Should we have something like that in place so that we don't have trucks that are hanging out in
Yeah,
public right?
that's something, that would be a legitimate thing to look into a little bit. I would think that you wouldn't want to prohibit that kind of thing, but you could definitely set a few standards, just to make, things,
Right.
it could potential nuisance things just like with.
I mean, we use some variations and descriptions of that in the confined feeding, like cul-de-sacs, turnarounds of
Right.
trucks, distances from
Yeah.
right-of-ways of the roads. We use that, but we were defining ourselves right into that confined feeding operation. That was our focus and stuff
Right.
that we were doing at that time. You know, I guess we beat up on that document in there without looking at all the rest of it. We're just exhausted with that. I'm glad to have it, that we had all these other things that could and will hopefully come, you know, into the county. You know, another thing is, I look at, I looked in our documents in their subdivision and with Travis's title, you know, as building commissioner, you know, where he gets a permit, you know, for a building permit. But all of our building permits are dealing with dwellings where people live, correct, Travis? Now, you know, I talked to you a little bit earlier and said, well, what kind of permit do they have to have for building, you know, and stuff. So, you know, where are these building permits and stuff? Is that a focus that we need to be looking at for other buildings, you know, to have it enacted? Or we're going to have a certain standards, you know, for those building permits? That's my thing, you know.
Yeah, and that's kind of entirely up to you guys to decide that. And I would say we kind of need to look back at what your comprehensive plan said as far as what direction the county wanted to go in that. Increasingly, communities are moving toward doing that, ones that have not in the past, just because of things like liability and things like that. But there's nothing that says that you absolutely have to. So that's kind of a local decision to make on that.
When you talk about Bonneville, Hendricks County, and Park County, and Marion, what have you, with the books and codes they have, from where we are, and I feel like in the 2 years I've been here, and I think the board's done a tremendous job on confined feeding operation, but I think we've stopped short of some of the places. I think maybe we need more definitions broke down, but I don't see what would be wrong with adopting some of the other counties' policies to move into the right direction.
Well, and that's, I mean, that is something that would be helpful to me if you like somebody else's policies and you say, we have looked at,
Well,
I don't know, whatever county it would be and we like what they're doing or something. That's great, we can start looking at those kind of things.
I can't say I've read everybody's. I've basically looked at Scott, Jackson, and Harrison. And there's certain parts I like, there's certain things I've got questions about. You want to be fair about it, but I feel like if we move towards some of the work they've already done and capitalize on it, we might be better off going that route.
So if you guys look at other, you said Scott, and who else did you say?
Jackson, Scott,
Yeah.
Harrison.
Okay,
Harrison, to me, he's got a good plan. They've got some things I'm in question about.
yeah,
But still, even if I kick part of it out or adopt it onto what, and I know they're still working with theirs,
right.
but from where we are, it's a confusing issue, it's a broad issue, it's an issue that without direction and leadership, and I'm not taking nothing away from nobody, like I said, they've done a great job, but I don't think we've moved fast enough in the right direction to say we've gained anything. That's what I have to fear.
Okay, there are definitely some things that, you know, we can make a priority and jump in on right away with some of the clarifications and the definitions and just a little better organization and administration section. And I would definitely recommend that we start kind of with that piece of it. And then as we work through this is not something we're going to do overnight. So as we work through this, we can start to talk about some of the other pieces and how far we want to go with things like development standards. And when I say development standards, that includes everything from setbacks to driveway widths to all those kind of things. You know, how much and how far do we need to go and things like that. Okay, this helps. This helps give me an idea of kind of where we need to focus as we start doing this. And I know that you've had some discussion on what you all see your priorities to be this year, but I didn't want to jump in again as the new kid and come in and say, I want you to do all these things without really touching base and talking to you about it first. Anything else?
Well, you know, I don't know if we really have a clear cut to the public an avenue for them to start.
Okay,
You know, we need to get a pinpoint where there's not this, because we've got certain things like Rule 5 in construction and stuff, and I had this little discussion this morning in council, meeting in there, is that if they go to the FSA office and do a Rule 5, then it ought to trigger something down the line if there's building construction going on that it would, in fact, handle with the plan commission. Or if they come to Travis, that, you know, it triggers something. So we need to have, instead of them kind of fumbling around, we need to have a starting point, and then from there it moves in a
Right.
direction.
now, again, you may, if you've given this to me, I apologize, because I didn't find it earlier today. Do you all have like a checklist that you give out to folks? Yes? Okay. I probably just need to look harder for that, I'm sorry. Okay.
I don't know if it's online on that, but
Okay,
I don't think we gave you anything.
okay. Maybe I just, okay, I probably need to look at that. That's one thing that can certainly help, is handing or having it available, a checklist that says, you know, here's the first step. You need to talk to this person here and this person next. And when you come to see Travis, you need to already have A, B, and C, and also bring D and E and F. And that kind of thing where you can lay out what's required in advance certainly helps. But yeah, I'll take a look at that. That's probably one of the easy ways that we can make sure everybody's on the same page.
She's
to
got
start
that, don't you,
with.
Travis? Can you send her a copy of it?
Okay. And that's something that also is helpful. Do you have them for like, if somebody's applying for rezoning or subdivision? That's something we may want to think about too, is just having that same kind of a checklist for any kind of application that the plan commission or BZA may deal with. That's something we do with a lot of communities. And again, that way they know when they come in for a variance or they come in for a subdivision or whatever, this is exactly what they have to bring with them. And it's, you know, just nice kind of summary checklist thing. So we can take a look at just some of that as some of the organizational stuff. That's not anything that will go in the ordinance typically. That's something that you would consider kind of a part of your rules of procedure. And we usually don't put that kind of checklist stuff in an ordinance because ordinances are harder to change. And so if you just keep it in your rules of procedure, you can much more easily add things to it as things change and people start doing things more electronically or whatever. You can change your requirements without having to go back and amend the ordinance. But still a public document, just a slightly different manner. Okay. All right. Good.
Travis, do you have anything that you'd like to, I mean, as you've been going in here, I mean, been some things that we've had discussion, you know, is, what do I do this direction, do I take it to this? You know? We tried to make this document, especially this confined feeding, and this checklist, that we put these points in there, that they could go in there and a bare piece of property before they buy it or do anything, look at it and see if it would even meet those requirements.
Right.
And if it does and it scores this, our manner is that we don't want to see everybody in front of the planning commission.
Right.
Well, put something in there that they can go in there and buy, develop, and go ahead with
Right.
that without having to come to the planning commission.
And I get that. There's I'm not going to suggest that you guys do a site plan approval for anything that gets built in the county, for example, which is something that Bloomington or Carmel or somebody would do. I get that. So we'll definitely take a look at it that way. Yeah.
Yeah, because realistically, I want, anybody that's wanting to invest in property and do this type of thing, I think they need to have a format in there and to go, instead of thinking, I think this will work,
Yeah.
you know.
It can work as long as you say, here's what our standards are. And as long as you meet these standards, whatever we want those minimum standards to be, then you're fine. But, that means we have to clearly spell what those standards are and not have some gray area in there. So,
I know that one thing that we had in there talking about densities, the population density. Well, as it reads in there, I'll flip through there, it talks about density, it talks about this half mile. And we've got different levels. And there's the operations right now as far as the sizes. And we went down to AFOs to basically to bring up into some buildings that were by state permits were dropping below those numbers, that we felt like it was as much of a issue here in the county to work with in confined feeding. Because it run underneath that threshold in there, it wasn't triggering some other things. So we gave a definition of AFO, which is below a CFO by their standards. And basically that what it was, picked up 18,000 turkeys. And so that's a number that's not seen, in there. It's poultry is 30,000, and so we dropped it down to there. Confined feeding operations, I wanted to go down here talking about the residences. That's the only thing we have on. It refers to the number of residences within a half mile of proposed operational facility. That talks about residents, and that's part of that density that throws you into larger and smaller setbacks. Well, one of the questions was, does that mean people that live in that residence? No, it dealt with the residents, and then I explained too, they need to be verified 911. That was the easiest place for us to go, was the GSI mapping in there for 911, and then designate what is actually a residence by definition of being housed 6 months of the year. That was something we put in there. To get down to the score sheet, there's the uses. All right. Here's developmental standards. We started with a standard distance in that. And as they go along, we come into residencies down through here. Where am I messing with that? Talking about densities and the extra distances.
That's I think that's actually on the score sheet.
Section of score sheet.
Yeah, it's way down there.
All right, we'll move on down to that. There's the densities. I mean, to us, when we discussed it, we knew what that was, Now, if you
it's in
read,
the score sheet, yeah.
if you read that definition and then you read this, you probably would have questions. Correct?
Yeah.
All right.
What questions would you have?
What question? I'm sorry.
Because it seems clear to me. but whenever we're the ones drafting it, it's,
Well,
you know what you meant.
I think part
Yeah,
of,
Michael?
Whenever
Part
I
of it-
seen it, residents, I said 0 to 5, so I started calculating on how many people's in each house. I mean, to me, it should say houses within, or each house, to me, that's what, okay, is there 5 people live in this house?
It doesn't say residence, it says residence.
I argue that, but I'm not gonna get out a dictionary and I'm gonna go through that. I'm just gonna go,
Yeah, I do too, but that's why they.
It was just dwellings instead of people,
to me, part of the disconnect is that that's in an appendix, not in the main part of the ordinance. So that's one of my bigger questions, is that it's not in the main ordinance, but it's in a separate, accessory piece of it.
So you think that should be in our 701 part of our, but that's where we have the description about the construction.
Probably so, yeah,
All right.
in that main section.
So do you think the whole score sheet ought to be copied in the developmental standards?
No, that's not what I'm saying, but I'm saying that shouldn't be the only place that shows up without any cross-reference or anything like that. It's just stuck in an appendix there. Because then you're just kind of stumbling on it. There needs to be a little more explanation and cross-referencing and stuff. Yeah, no, I'm not saying we ought to repeat everything, definitely. Yeah.
What would you, so, I guess my question would be, basically, so anything that there was a question about on the score sheet is the only stuff that you would repeat in the ordinance itself?
Not necessarily repeat, but you probably want to reference it in the actual ordinance somewhere, so that there's at least a cross-reference. You probably want to make sure that there are some definitions that help figure out what that means in the score sheet. So,
Well, there is a definition for that.
Yeah, there's definitions on up here. Let's just,
yeah, well, you're more familiar with all the different definitions than I am right now. I'll get you though, as we go on.
all right. But see, right there's our definitions section,
Okay.
and there's residence.
Residence is right there.
Right. So, but yeah, if I were looking through the ordinance and I came to, 700,
Yes,
and there's nothing there, I might not know that I'm supposed to keep looking into an appendix to find something.
Oh, it does say you need to score so many on the
Yeah,
yeah,
appendix.
but I think we can make it a little bit
a
clearer.
little clarification.
That's
Yeah.
fine.
Okay.
Well, and the thing is too, when they go to the planning commission, go to the building commissioner, they just get a copy of the score sheet. They don't get a copy of the definitions for that score sheet, right? Like what a residence or resident is and some of those things. So I think that might be helpful too.
That's a good point.
Yeah, they don't know what
That's a good point.
that definition
Yeah,
is.
we're
They
actually-
don't get a copy.
We're actually careful not to say residential density, because residential density would refer to people, or could, so we actually,
Well, and the reason we didn't want that is because we didn't want people claiming they had 13 people living in a house and therefore
Yeah.
disqualifying a perfectly legitimate operation.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah, no, I mean, and it makes sense to look at housing units, not population density, because that fluctuates all over the
Right.
place. And that's what
How do you-
state law does with mining and stuff like that.
and how do you know what it is anyway? People just they can claim anything.
Yeah,
You know, have a big
Travis is on reconnaissance missions.
So a page with definitions to go out also with the application and score sheet.
I don't know if we have to go that far. Maybe we could just add a little bit more explanation to the score sheets or something I don't want you to have to reproduce the whole ordinance or something.
Well, it's not that,
Maybe you could put a referral in
Well, you
it's not that big a deal.
On the CAFO people, or on the animal feeding operation, people that come in for permits, your packet that you give them has a copy of the whole ordinance in it, doesn't it?
I don't send out the whole ordinance,
Oh,
but
okay.
that's what I was saying, it's the application score sheet, but the ordinance is right there. They can also go through, I present that also that has the definitions, and they can take out, or I'll make whatever they need.
Doesn't the application that I made say on there something to the effect of they have to have read and understood the?
I believe, so. I don't have a copy of it, but
I think it does. I think
we
it says
really
something
went
like that on there.
and double checked everything, making sure,
Yeah,
but if it needs to be different, that's fine.
yeah.
You know what? I've been doing this a long time. Every community is always evolving and changing how it does things. So there's not one right or wrong way to do this. I'm not saying you haven't been doing it right by any means, but as we try things and get more feedback from people, we'll find, oh, well, if we just would have told them that meant that might have made it easier for people. So I'll help you, but my prediction is we'll just keep evolving over the years as you guys keep doing this. And there'll be tweaks that you make to everything.
Well, another thing I'd like to have, in the old ordinances, we saw what was missing in the old ordinance that the commissioners had passed several years ago. There was no timelines to speak. It was like to infinity. Just as long as you had these setbacks in there. Of course, you didn't have to go basically get a permit. It just said that you'd have these certain setbacks, from a church, school, and that. Now, we've got a certain criteria in there. For one, what is a true starting date, and what's a true ending date, as far, and I think we did identify that 15 months after the permit was given, then there ought to be a documentation of completion. If there wasn't, then they could appeal and ask for an extension, and we've allowed that. But to identify what is the true start. Is it thinking about it in a dream? Is it a permit whenever, what is that? Unfortunately, you get in circumstances that comes up that it's an important issue. Is it dirt work? Is it a continuation of a project that we don't know what the business structure is or what the full scope of the business structure is wanting to do, especially if we have 2 permits from the state that comes in. What is the true intentions? Is this a continuation of a process? And then we go through this transition period that we're in right now, from the old ordinance to the new.
Right. And that's, yeah,
It's tough.
it is tough. It is definitely tough. Yeah, but, lots of other folks have gotten through it, and you will, but it's a tricky time as you're trying to ease out of one and into another. Okay. All right, that's given me some good background. We'll talk more about priorities as we get into the discussion of the rules tonight, but I will start at least my piece of looking at some of the what I would call the quicker fixes that we can do, more administrative things to the ordinance to tighten it up, before I jump in and tackle the really big things that we're still going to need to have some discussion on. And I will definitely report back to you next month about where I'm at on that zoning ordinance piece.
Well, in our agenda, we've asked the BZA to come in so that we could go through rules of procedure together. And I've kind of outlined in there to an 8, at this time, right now, about 7:45 for that. I see that we have two other BZA that are out in the audience in that, and we're missing Todd Ewing.
Todd, yeah.
Do you know if he's coming or not?
I assume so, but typically he wouldn't show up till 8:15. I think we always put on the notice that we're going to start at 8:15 or after the plan commission meeting. Should we?
Recess for 5.
Or you can do other, if you want to push me
Yep.
aside and do some other
We could.
All right,
work.
You want to,
yes. You want to go ahead?
I'm going to talk about mine.
Yeah.
You know. We can talk about take up the items of new business. Or you want to wait?
Well, could be kind of lengthy in there, but I think you want to have go into the new business in that, or do you want to talk with where we're at? What do you want to do there?
Well, let me go ahead and address mine, because I'm one of the new business. Let's
All right.
dispense with that real quick. Either way.
Well, go ahead. I don't have your letter.
Yeah, I don't either. After the last meeting, I think, I sent Dave Hoare a notice that I wanted to resign from the Plan Commission as legal counsel, but indicated my willingness to work with whoever the Plan Commission ultimately designates. But I wanted to let everyone know, and then as you decide, we can, I will work with them and transfer files and meet with them and go over things and kind of get them, help facilitate getting that person up and running. So it's been a pleasure working with all of you, but I'm tired. I get real busy, and it's gotten to the point where I really need to step down from something, and I figured this is a good time, since we're getting ready to hire a consultant, since we're just starting with a new consultant, for someone else to step in, and that would be a great resource, I think, for a new person, and a good point at which someone else could take over. So ultimately, I think it's the county that hires them, but I think the Plan Commission decides who they like to have. I can't remember which way the statute actually designates. But anyway, I quit.
With your resignation, though, as far as this transition, would you give me a definition of transition?
That's up to you all. I can leave now, or I can leave in 2 months. I will leave that up to you. As soon as you designate someone, I want them to start getting paid, and I'll work for free through that transition. So as soon as someone gets designated, we need to, through the county, transfer that to them. But however long that takes you is how long it takes you. I'd like it to be within a month or two.
He never said that. I work for free.
Well, I think that we're in a process of you being on board all the way back through the comprehensive plan, and their transition of bringing new legal counsel in there. We definitely need that, especially as we're implementing and putting new language in there.
I'd still like to be able to pick Tom's brain.
Yes, because knowing where we've been
I'm
at,
happy
to where we're going and stuff. I know that Mark Clark is in the audience now, and he expressed that's the reason he's here, is to review what we're doing. And that, so, and
See if I want to work with you guys.
yeah, I want to see if he wants to work with this and stuff. So anyway, so that's the reason he's here. And we got Clark and Meade back there both, so we're lawyered up in here tonight. But anyway, I do want to have that transitional period to make this as smooth as possible in there, so we don't lose out on some things. And that the board, any ideas about what you want to do or not do as far as in this process?
I am assuming you're resigning from the BZA as well.
Yes. I'd recommend it be someone from Washington County. I mean, and I gave you these two names back here, so.
I know both of them, and I'd be satisfied with either one if you're willing to quit. If Mark don't mind meetings.
I think it depends on if you want middleweight or heavyweight.
John, I don't think that was fair.
Hate to ask which one you prefer.
Do we need a motion?
Well, you gotta have a motion to accept, and then I think the resignation.
Well, and you guys might want to take individually, call people and talk to them and.
Yeah. Now, if we'd see in your letter here, and I know your preference is to resign as quickly as you can so you can start doing your other endeavors, but if we were to table this till we get other clients that we might, or possibility council that would be interested in that, do you see us as far as taking this to next month?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's unfair to drop this on everyone and have them make a decision tonight. But yeah, I mean, like I say, if it's 2 months from now, whatever, but as soon as you name someone, let me know, because I want to get with them outside a meeting and start transferring, saying, here's what I got, here's what I think you need to know. I can sit down with someone and bring them up to speed fairly quickly. I've got some pretty good materials.
Okay.
Can we accept his resignation tonight, or do we need to wait until we have someone as a replacement, and then?
You can resign whether we accept it or not.
Yeah,
Okay.
but I think it just to keep me on until you find a replacement is fine. That's,
Yeah, if you're willing to do that. but-
yeah, I'm good. I don't want to leave.
Somebody want to make that as a motion?
Make a motion that we continue to pay Tom Cyphers his retainer until a new legal counsel is named for both the Planning and Zoning Commission and the BZA Board.
All right, do we have a motion on the floor? Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Mark Irvin Day is seconded. Jeff Souter first on that. It's open for discussion.
Did I word that correctly, Tom? Well enough?
Sounds good to me.
Seeing more, any discussion? I want to leave anybody out. If not, we'll take it to a vote. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same. Motion carried. We'll make this official with your resignation when a new legal counsel is identified and accepted.
Okay. We could probably start talking about rules of procedures or rules of procedure, and then as Todd gets in here, because 4 of the 5 BZA are here.
All right, let's go ahead, KK.
All right. It might be, honestly, easier if BZA members were brave enough to come up to this table so you're all a little closer together.
Are we going to adjourn the planning commission for the minute then?
Well, we're going to do this jointly, and there, I think the BZA.
They're attending, listening.
Okay.
Yeah, you can just sit here with us.
I guess we could technically,
While they're moving that stuff in, we're going to take a 2-minute break, all right? 2-minute break with all the materials.
hey, Adam.
And you're underneath it?
And it's not under the hood.
Yeah.
Make a setup.
If it doesn't make any sound, keep smiling.
Oh, yeah.
I got a tree last fall.
I was guessing too. No, that was a guess. I had no idea, but so.
Were you logging?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. That's dangerous.
Tell me about it.
Like Killbuster south.
How you doing tonight, Jerry?
I'm good.
Yeah. They have it, all day. I did go to Mark 30 one time. Come back. 4.
Is this, what is this, a revised?
What I've done is, yeah, I'll tell you about all that in a minute, but basically what I did is take a look at your rules of procedure and some, what you have, a lot of it's really good. There's just some pieces that seem to be missing. So the stuff you see on the tablets is the new stuff, right? So I find it's usually a lot easier if you've got something in front of you, to start, this is a starting point that you just kind of generally talking.
I said next month,
So
it'll be
this is
30.
our copy, starting knocking out.
Scott Brown's going in there, bringing it over.
Yeah, and, you know, you guys have never done this before, so that's great, and there's a lot of good information, a lot about not changing, not just adding things in there.
Yes. Well, John's actually here for another.
Yeah, she came in
He
today
is,
and signed an extension of the closing.
yes, he's counsel.
Signed a waiver on the pest inspection because she knew she didn't have to. Let's see, maybe I throw the thing in there.
But, anyway, so, I don't know, we need to go through a list, potential candidates, go for a while and stuff. So we need to take a look at that. Not really, they're really here for observation more than anything, not for interviews.
See, they didn't give you a choice, Jerry. We just asked you.
Okay.
Well, no, but that's really good that you brought that. Yeah.
Poor Mark was at Adam, do you want to
I know
open
that was gonna cost.
BZA in there, so we're already in session.
Do you want to adjourn, or do you want to do this all together?
All together, so I need like a joint meeting with the,
Oh, just, not just,
That's still, but we need to open the BZA.
yeah,
I
not
mean,
just.
we can't really do anything if we're not open
Yeah,
first.
just,
Right.
just
Do we
in
even have
general
anything
for
that
everything.
far?
And I'm trying to think what we were talking about.
I don't know, I thought that we were talking about all that stuff.
Is it just
Wait.
appears on
these rules and procedures will be very similar between the two, that's the reason we're having review at the same time. That's the reason.
For some reason, I'm not.
Okay, I think that we'll go ahead and get reconvened back into the Plan Commission. I'm going to defer to Adam DeFord, which is the president of the BZA, to go ahead and open his BZA meeting so that meeting can be conducted to obtain information. So Adam?
BZA is open for business.
All right.
We have 4 members present and a quorum, so we're going to do business.
Okay, very good. I'll defer to KK to go to rules and procedures.
All right. All of you should have a copy of a handout, and basically what I've done is take what the, and I'll confess to you right now, I intended to have a separate handout to the BZA, ended up with the flu last week, and it didn't get done. So we're going to talk about tonight things that are the same for the Plan Commission and the BZA, and we'll not talk a lot about things that are going to be different, because there will be some differences between the rules, okay? So even though you're a BZA member, you've got something that says Plan Commission Rules of Procedure, and I'll fix you up. Those few days last week just kind of caught me.
Have you got our BZA rules and
Yeah.
procedures also?
Yeah, I do. So basically, what we're going to start with here is what I did is I took a look at your rules of procedure and just kind of looked at what might be missing, and this is a lot of it based on my years of going to an awful lot of these kind of meetings and seeing weird situations come up and so forth. So things that you already had in your rules were good. I didn't see a whole lot of things that I wanted to get rid of that were in your rules. You have a good basic start with your rules of procedure. There are just more things basically that I would want to add to it. And so the things that I'm recommending that we add to it would be shown in italics on your handout that you've got. So if we start on the first page, start at the very beginning, one thing that I would add that typically are included in, let me go ahead and pull up the BZA rules too. One thing that typically is in rules of procedure is the duties of the Plan Commission and the BZA. And that's something that I would want to add. There are a lot of those things that come out of Indiana state law. So there's this new little section that I'm saying I want to add, but also we could add other peculiars, not direct, unique local duties that you might have. For example, in some communities, Plan Commission has to do a capital improvement budget, or they are, by default, they do the park master plan, or they do, if they're a city plan commission, they may work on annexation plans or things. So there may be local duties that are assigned to the Plan Commission also that we may want to add to this list. But I think at the very least, we want to add the Plan Commission duties. And let me back up. I don't know if all the BZA members were here when I started tonight, but maybe I should just say again that the rules of procedure are one of 4 documents that you all need when you make your decisions. Those 4 documents are the comp plan, the subdivision ordinance, what else? Zoning ordinance, you guys are good, and the rules of procedure, okay. So this is one piece of that. These are not an ordinance, they are rules. They're adopted by resolution, but they guide what you do. So the other thing is not only are you the ones that are using them, but these are something that you would have available to people who would come to your meetings, applicants that would come in here so that they would know what to expect in advance. And so these are people, the public, that are going to be using them too. So we may put things in here that you say, oh, I already know this, but keep in mind that we're going to make this eventually available to folks so that everyone can use it. So we may be adding a little more information than you as a trained BZA or PC member may think you need, like what your duties are, but I think it's helpful to have that in there. So that would be right off the bat something that I would say I would like to see us add is just talk about, you know, what it is that you actually do in each group. And again, that's prescribed by state law, but we could also add some local things if we want to. Then when we get down to appointments, the next section, membership, most rules of procedure, because there are so many formulas in Indiana state law for plan commissions, there are pages and pages and pages in here of alternate makeups for plan commissions. And so it's really helpful to have in your rules exactly which formula you're following. just to make it a little bit clearer for anybody who comes in that's not used to your community or that looks in the state law and gets really confused. So that's what we're doing in this new section, is spelling out exactly who's on the plan commission. And one of my questions, which I think I've already answered, is the kind of plan commission that you have. You could either have one that is got the county ag extension educator on it, or you could have 5 citizen members, but I met your county ag extension educator tonight, so I know which version it is that you are now.
So that'd be number 4.
That would be, yep, so you would be, that on number 4, then that means that we're gonna cross out that last part of number 4. And then we've got 5 members, and again, we've got a little bit of an option with the state law, 5 members that are appointed either the township trustee and 4 citizen members, or 5 citizen members. And you guys are 5 citizen members, okay. So we'll cross out A then. It's getting clearer to me already. All right. Then I would like to see us add some more information about the terms of office. This gets really confusing even in communities where they've been doing this a long time. That the term of office needs to be spelled out, and that the term should be for 4 years for citizen members. And you also need to talk about when it expires, and that even if it expires, that member continues to serve until their successor is appointed or qualified. And also stating that that member is eligible for reappointment. Now, we're talking about our citizen members. Why is this important to spell out? Because 10 years from now, if we get to a February meeting of the Plan Commission and the county commissioners haven't made new appointments for some reason, maybe there's a recount or something like that, does that mean all business has to stop, or what happens? And I've seen this happen before. So that's why I think we need to spell some of these things out, is just to try to avoid some of these issues in the future. Fairly easy and clear, but just something that would be helpful to have in there, I think. Yeah.
Where do we have that? Is it in our ordinance where we created the plan commission? So that needs to be copied, because we have all the terms.
Okay, the terms are laid out
In the
ordinance,
ordinance where we
okay.
created the plan commission. I know there's somewhere, and they weren't here, I'm like, wow.
Okay,
I know
I'll
we-
check that.
And I think we did it in,
We did it according to the
we
state.
did in the zoning ordinance as to the BZA. I can't remember.
Well, I think that we set up our terms too at 3 years too.
No, it was 4.
It
Well,
was 4?
There were initial terms.
the initial appointments are
They
staggered,
Okay,
And then they're 4 years.
and then it's 4 years
All
after
right.
that.
Yeah,
okay.
it's according, it's however it is in Title 36.
Okay, we don't necessarily need to repeat that. I am more of a fan of putting that kind of stuff in the rules of procedure, so that if state law changes
Right.
or something.
Well, when we made an ordinance basically creating the plan commission.
Right.
We put those terms in there.
Oh, okay, I thought you were saying it was in the zoning,
No,
it was
no,
in the
it's-
enabling
It's in
ordinance.
the enabling
Okay, I
ordinance,
got you.
yeah. It should be repeated in the.
Yeah,
rules.
okay, now I'm following you, never mind.
We just need to copy whatever it is exactly, and put
Okay.
that in there, because that's what we've been using.
Okay, gotcha. Then the next paragraph, B, is something that's kind of new. And in 2011, finally, the state legislature listened to a lot of communities that were frustrated about having trouble getting quorums for meetings. And so what they finally said is that you can have alternates for, you have always been able to have alternates for Board of Zoning Appeals in Indiana if there was a conflict of interest. Now you can have alternates for Plan Commission also since 2011. And so this just clarifies that it's the appointing authority that has the ability to appoint alternate members to the commission. And we'll also be tweaking this in the Board of Zoning Appeals information also, because it's not just, we'll be tweaking when that alternate member can step in, basically, because some of that slightly changed in 2011. So it'll be important to think about that. You do not have to have an alternate member. I think it's an extremely good idea to have alternate members, so that if you get something where you have conflicts of interest, you're not left with not having a quorum and not being able to act on something. So you can have one alternate that, the county commissioners can appoint an alternate, for example, for every person they appoint. They could appoint a pool of alternates, one for all 3 people or whatever, 2 people, whatever that formula is here. There are different ways that we could do that, but I think that's something, I know you guys haven't been necessarily overwhelmed with cases yet, but there's nothing more frustrating than getting to a meeting and not being able to act on something, particularly for an applicant, because you don't have enough people that are eligible to vote. So that's something I think we definitely need to think about, is that alternates. Vacancies, we don't really talk in your existing ordinance about vacancies and what happens. And so it just clarifies that. And one thing that I'm adding under vacancies is when members can be removed. That's a question, I do a lot of Plan Commission training, and that's one I get a lot from Plan Commission members who say, suddenly one of our members was removed by the appointing authority. We don't know why. We suddenly had one less member. What's going on? Can they do that? So this just points out, per state law, that the appointing authority does have ability to remove a member for cause. It doesn't say what that reason is, but it does spell out that state law requires them to mail a notice to whoever they appointed that they're removing, and basically tell them why they're removing them. So it may be because they gossiped too much, it may be because they were caught taking a bribe, it may be because they divorced their sister, who knows, but at least it spells out when that can happen. And the other thing that is in there is that state law also allows appointing authorities to get rid of a member who missed 3 consecutive meetings. It's not mandatory, but it's something that may happen. It's up to the circumstances and the appointing authority to make that decision. But I think it's helpful to have that in there as new people come on. That's a way that you all can educate yourself as to what could or could not happen to you. So that's helpful, I think, to have in there just for future members. Okay, any questions so far?
Could you dismiss people for tracking weddings?
Sorry?
Could you dismiss people for tracking weddings?
It's,
If so,
yeah,
think about you.
It's kind of funny. I didn't look at any case law for what those cause things were. I'm just taking my best guess that.
I guess BZA would have a regular monthly meeting, would they?
We can. We can, but not really a need.
There's no need to if there's no.
Right, if there's no cases, you don't have to.
That's my
Okay.
Right. All right, let's talk about officers and appointments. Just going into a little bit more detail about that, it's up to the president, and that's kind of one of those things my kids would say is a duh thing, where obviously the president's in charge, so he's going to make sure that these elections happen, but it just spells it out. And spells out that the members have to nominate candidates, and the nomination has to receive a second to be considered. So just kind of spelling that out. So again, it comes from things where I've seen somebody who doesn't get a second who's still determined to try to run, and just causes a lot of confusion sometimes. And then it spells out the order that the election should take place. And that's helpful, so you don't have somebody who's running for all 3 seats, for example, if you're trying to vote at once. You can do a roll call, that's fine. And then the rest of it is what you've already got in there. And same kind of thing with the BZA, I would anticipate the same thing. We're not going to vote on the chair, the vice chair, and the secretary all at once. We do it in the same kind of manner there. And then one new duty that I've added in recent years to my recommendations for the president's duty is that the president becomes the official spokesperson for the commission. There have been some situations around the state where there were press releases being issued by different members of the Plan Commission that people thought were the spokesperson, but they weren't the spokesperson, and then you'd get competing press releases, and it can get really crazy, and we hope that never happens, but just in case, this clarifies that as the president is the official spokesperson for the commission. And that is done kind of in conjunction with the planning director. We could leave that in, we could take that out. I kind of leave that up to you guys to decide whether you want to just say it's the president period, or if you want to say the president and the planning director. And same with the BZA. Secretary, adding a little bit to that list there, just clarifying the record keeping a little bit more. And just again, saying that basically the secretary is serving at the pleasure of the commission, so that means they could be appointed or dismissed by a majority vote. If over the last few months you got really tired of Tom's minutes and just got fed up and one of you wanted to take over and become secretary and do the minutes or something.
That's been a frequent
discussion.
That's, you could do that. So there you go. And then it just talks about what do you do if the secretary's not there. Again, it's probably one of those things my kids would say is a duh thing, where you obviously appoint an interim secretary to take notes and do that, but it's important to spell that out because unfortunately some plan commissions haven't done that and didn't have any. Then I've added also to this section, we made it not just about officers but appointments, so that it clearly talks about the appointment of the attorney in here and the appointment of consultants, which is something that state law says Plan Commission can do. Then no changes to 2.03. 2.04 talks about the planning director, and really the only thing there would be just talking a little bit more about minimum qualifications, basically a job description Plan Commission could put together for the planning director if you wanted to do that, and you could also do performance reviews. Some communities include that, some don't. Totally up to you. And then one thing for BZA to talk about too is whether you want the staff to provide staff reports at all. And if you are a community where you have staff require them to do some kind of written report to you before the meeting, where they kind of do a case summary of what's coming before you, that's something that's often spelled out in the rules of procedure. Here's what we want, so that it's clear what the expectation is. I don't think you do staff reports now, or do you do staff reports? No. And again, I know you haven't really been overwhelmed with cases so far and so forth, so this is just something to think about if you want to start doing or not. Planning staff, just again stating in there that you all would prescribe some minimum qualifications for planning staff. The director would still be the one doing the hiring, but you would have some input into what kind of a person are we looking for, somebody with building inspection skills, for example, or whatever. And that you also can contract for special or temporary consulting services, and that is, if you look at D, that's, for example, if you're looking at a big development and there's a traffic impact study that's part of it, and you need somebody with a traffic engineer to be able to look at that and give you input on whether that makes sense or not, then you have the ability to add temporary staff, if you will, to help you in those kind of situations. So this is just kind of spelling that out here. Committees, you guys already have that down. Very minor tweak on that. Date, time, place of meeting, adding a little bit to that. Just saying, where is the information going to be available about those meetings? Going to be on the county's website and as a printed handout from the Plan Commission's office. And that is pretty routinely expected that that's what would be done. And then talking about once you've set that calendar, if you want to make changes, if you all realize that you have a meeting scheduled during County Fair Week and you want to change that, that basically the executive committee could look at that and say, oh, we're going to reschedule our, what is it, July, whatever meeting, and that's how you can do that. So, and then you just redo it and post it. This is a lot of common sense stuff, and you kind of look at it and say, do we really need to spell out this common sense stuff? And unfortunately, yes, a lot of it you do, because I've seen some things just go crazy because it wasn't spelled out. So, no comments on the next few sections. The quorum and voting, 3.05. Let's talk about this one a little bit. In BZA, this is something that I want you to think about too. What we have is if one of your members has a conflict, and I'll talk about that more in a minute, but it's not just a direct or indirect financial conflict of interest that we're talking about. State law now says if you can't be objective about a case, that you also have a conflict of interest. So if you hate the person that is coming before you because they ran over your dog so much that you can't think clearly about what they're asking for, the state law now considers that a conflict of interest. So what we have now doesn't say what that member does exactly. It says that they have to announce they have the conflict, but it doesn't say, do they stay at the table, do they leave the room, what do they do? And so that's something that I would like you to kind of consider is what should happen when a member has a conflict of interest. They are supposed to refrain from participating in any discussion, but can you sit in the front row and make faces at everybody up there? Give them big thumbs down signs, or?
Yeah, but it's not in there.
It's not in there.
No.
Yeah, we talked about the meeting. We wanted them excused from the meeting.
Yeah, I thought that was in there.
But it's not in this, what I've got in the rules of procedure.
We talked about that, didn't we?
We did, and I thought that we had said that they need to remove themselves from the room
Okay.
so that they could be in a
Influencing
mannerism
in
of,
any way,
Yeah.
and everybody feel free to talk.
I think that is definitely the better approach. BZA, are you comfortable with that also? Okay, then we'll go with that second piece on B. The other thing I want to talk about is how you guys vote. And I really am not comfortable with voting with a voice vote or a show of hands. because you don't have a good record of that. And if you get challenged on something, or the public wants to know, it's really hard if you're just trying to listen to a tape or relying on somebody's notes. And most communities require a written ballot that is kept as part of the permanent record.
On every vote, or just like votes?
On cases.
Well, it wouldn't be, let's adjourn the meeting, let's have.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, no.
Because the
But
planning
on,
commission does a lot of voting, it's not.
yeah, right. And I think that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about on the actual applications or petitions,
Right.
having a
With
written
the
ballot
BZA.
that goes in the case file.
All right. We have asked, whenever we have adopted something to send to the commissioners, we've asked for a roll call vote.
Which is,
You say your name and you vote. it's
Right.
on
And it's,
video.
and it's taken by the secretary in that. So
Yeah.
would that suffice for that? Sometimes
Well-
it would be the case that people would want to,
yeah. State law doesn't say you have to have it. It's just my personal preference, and it may be something the new attorney may.
How do you set up a written vote? How would that be done? They each have a separate ballot and they vote it?
Yeah, they have a separate ballot, and then they get passed usually to the secretary, who counts them and says, we have 5 that voted in favor and 4 that voted against, or 3 that voted against, and 1 that was absent, or whatever. And then that.
and that written ballot should have their name on it, how they voted. Okay?
It just needs to be a piece of paper, you just sign it and write yea or nay.
Yeah.
Pretty simple.
It becomes, it's,
voted what, it's become.
yeah,
not
you don't
necessarily
have
who
to
voted
at the
what.
meeting say, Joe voted for it, Jane voted
Yeah.
against it, kind of thing. But it's a public, it's
a
public
vote, it
record.
would be a public record.
Yeah.
So, because,
So
I mean,
they
if
could-
we did a voice vote or a show of hands,
Right.
they'd see.
Yeah,
So
one way or
it's
the other,
same.
they can find out. if they
Right.
want to.
And
Right.
secret votes, private ballots aren't allowed
No.
by law.
So, again, my preference is just to have that written record, but that may be something that we take up. I don't want to play attorney because I'm not a planner. So my planner experience is saying I like the written.
Well, usually I use it as a discretion, whenever it comes to a vote, where I think it's important that it's recorded, in that I ask the planning commission to accept a roll call vote.
Okay. So we could maybe change voice vote to roll call.
I think it'd be easiest.
I like that better.
I do too.
Yeah.
I think it accomplishes the same purpose, and it's easier.
They have to be recorded in the minutes, though,
Oh,
of
yeah.
how people voted, just not the total.
Well, the total would be two.
Yeah, it
Well, the
would
total
always
would be too, but
If the
how
minutes would
each,
say-
how each member voted.
Well, the minutes would say Jeff Souter, yay,
Okay.
Reuben Day, yay. I mean, it would list it in the minutes just how the roll call was called.
Gotcha.
as well, and that would be-
Thoughts? Hear some discussion.
Mark, got a point.
Well, I'm just trying to understand. I understand what you're saying on the written vote, I get that. But I didn't know, sometimes if it's not necessary in that, could you go either or? If doing it like, I believe David was saying, how it's gone in the past and things are going well on the board. So I don't know, but I don't know if you have to have one or the other, or can you have both where you can go either way for expediency and it's
She's
written down,
talking-
recorded.
I think on every single application, you ought to have a roll call vote.
So the application, the adoption or the adoption for us to give a favorable recommendation to commissioners, those type of aspects, should be a roll call or some type of written in there, but a motion to
adjourn.
Adjourn,
Yeah.
just general
Yes,
movement
Approve
in
the
there.
minutes, you know.
Okay, I kind of
I can
understand that.
clarify that a little bit.
Let's do, because understanding that we're writing this document not for just the people that are sitting on this board, we're writing this document for
Exactly.
people as they come in 5 and 10 years from now.
Gotcha. Yes, sir.
Yeah, approving the minutes would be another thing, it's not
Right.
substantive, I mean, it's.
And then you have, okay,
Okay. I can
you've
fix it.
got D here as you're moving along against, them. We've already got that language. Okay.
Okay, and then the other one I want to talk about is F. I really don't like F the way it's written now, that someone who comes in late can still participate in discussion or vote, even if they haven't been there for the testimony or the presentations or anything. And I don't like that because it's just kind of bad practice, honestly.
Okay.
As a rule of thumb, if you're not there and you haven't heard what people have said in the public meeting, you don't have the same information. And you'll see this idea come up later also when we talk about continued cases. If you weren't at the hearing the month before and you missed the whole, public hearing and everything the month before because you were at the lake or whatever, and then the case is continued, you can't come back the next month and expect to vote on it unless, in what I say, is you listen to the tape so that you hear everything that was said or something like that. That's what a lot of communities do. I'm just not comfortable with having somebody who hasn't heard everything in the public meeting cast a vote.
Would this be where your alternate comes into play?
Sorry?
Would this be where your alternate could come into play?
I'm not sure if I'm understanding your...
We don't anticipate the alternate being there unless more in advance. So if the person's arriving late, they wouldn't have gotten their alternate to show up. Let me explain.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Let me
Okay.
explain that this was an extensive discussion as well. And ultimately, what drove the final wording was, okay, what if, he called the meeting to order tonight, and before there was any substantive discussion, Irvin Day walked in and sat down. And he hadn't missed, okay, any substantive discussion of what's going on. We could get into, because the meeting had been called to order, or the discussion has started, but they haven't really missed anything. We're very aware of the policy rationale behind excluding them, but we ended up changing that to this so that, I guess we didn't say what that discretion should be based on, but that was the idea behind it, because we didn't want someone to say, oh, they should be excluded because they got here late, and literally there had been
No testimony.
There had been no
Okay.
testimony, no evidence offered, and so they technically would have heard everything, but they got there late. So we haven't defined what late means.
Okay.
And I think that's why we had an extensive
I can see
discussion on this. Because
What if we just clarify that, then, that there can't have been, do you want them, if they miss the applicant's presentation but make the public comment, should they be allowed to know?
No.
No, they should not.
If they,
If they arrive after the meeting has been called to order, but before any testimony of any kind is given,
okay.
they can participate in the meeting.
What if they miss the 2 cases before it, but they come in for the 3rd case before anything has happened? Can
What
they-
about removing the words, "who arrives late for a hearing"? And it just says, "A member shall not participate in any discussion or vote on any matter on which testimony had been taken or discussion held prior to his or her arrival."
Beautiful.
That makes sense.
Just take out the words,
Exactly.
"who arrives late for a hearing."
That's exactly what it
Yep. You're good.
He knows.
Don't brag on it too much.
All right. I owe you a cup of coffee on that one, I think. Everybody happy with that? BZA, yeah, Planning Commission both, okay, good.
I don't think we need to really do that.
Should,
I don't think they had, I think they were more specific.
okay, all right. That's my fault for not finishing the BZA. But, okay, let's talk about the meetings now. I want to get into a little bit more in B on why it might be impossible to conduct a meeting at the regularly scheduled time, date, or place, such as severe weather, emergency, other unforeseen event. Not that, nobody's feeling it that month. We gotta have some kind of justification in there for why we couldn't do it. And then also, though, talk about canceling the meeting if there's no scheduled business for that meeting. And what it takes to do that. Instead of getting consent of the whole plan commission, which I think seems really unwieldy to do, you've got the ability to have an executive committee, which is the president, the vice president, the secretary. What if you just allow them to make that decision? Do all 9 of you need to be called, for example, or all 5 BZA members to talk about whether to cancel the meeting if there's nothing that's been filed?
Well, the BZA doesn't even have.
You guys don't have regularly
We don't have
scheduled
regularly
meetings yet.
scheduled meetings. Yeah, we only convene meetings.
Okay,
So that kind of excludes us from the
Right.
conversation. As far as the planning commission goes, we've always met very much. I think it was one time when we didn't have a quorum ever, wasn't there?
No.
And we had a conflict that night anyway, because the city plan commission met on our night.
Yeah, yeah,
4 of us showed up, and
Yeah.
we couldn't have a meeting anyway, it was just coincidental.
yeah.
okay, I still think we should have this in there,
Okay.
because there may come a time where, even though you've always met so far, there's a lot of communities, especially when we had the downturn in the economy, that went months without having regular meetings because there was no business. So let's again prepare for that. And then what do we do if we cancel the meeting? Who do we tell? And so I've added that if it's canceled, that the president has to notify the planning director, and then the planning director has to notify all the plan commission members, the applicants, if there are any, and local newspaper. And this could be if it's canceled because there's a blizzard on the way, or if it's canceled because the building burned down, or for whatever reason. And, yeah.
Something crazy like that.
So we also want to, try to get the word out to the newspaper, post a notice at the office of the Plan Commission and on the website. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah, and the website in there, I do still think, if we go through there, I went through the website, we've just got to kind of change that format and get that a little bit easier to flow through and stuff. Especially the Plan Commission business, they go to Plan Commission business, it'll be like right there.
Yeah, it's the way of the future for sure. And there's a lot of good templates out there that communities are already using.
All
so,
right.
Yeah. And then one of the other things I want to add is the order of business. Instead of saying the order of business shall be established by the commission, I would feel a lot more comfortable if we had a standard order that we took things in where old business always came before new business, that kind of thing. That does not mean that you can't suspend the rules and change something. If you get to a meeting and you've got 100 people in the room that are for the last item on the agenda, then you can suspend your rules and change the order of the items on your agenda.
But you have
That's
to
fine.
vote to suspend the rules.
Yeah, you do.
Procedurally, that's fine.
Yeah.
I don't see it. I don't see it. I mean, this is plan commission stuff. I don't see any problem with that. I mean, that,
It's one of those things that it's kind of a good habit to get into, because you keep doing the same thing then you're not gonna forget one night and leave a piece of it off.
I mean, that's pretty much the way we do things anyway.
Yeah,
But
it's-
there's no reason it can't just stay that way.
Yeah, it just kind of makes sense. And again, this is something that if you have it on your website, and somebody who's going to come before you that's never been before you before can look at it a month in advance and know that they're not going to be there until, you know, after you do the minutes and stuff like that. That just kind of helps them know what to expect when they get to the meeting. All right.
Does adjournment have to be the last thing?
What do you want to do, the hokey pokey? You're messing with the new kid, okay. Public hearing and notice, golden, until I get to, well, just one little thing. The written notice I would like to see include the actual date, time, and place of the hearing under 2C, the name of the applicant, and the reason for the public hearing. But the part that really gave me heartburn in this section is the fact that number 4, written notice is not required by state law, it just supplements the legally required public notice. So you're asking people to do written notice, but then you're saying it's really not required. This is, you guys are the only commission I have ever worked with who's tried to do this.
What are you looking at?
It's number 4
Oh,
under
down.
D.
On page 10.
Oh,
On page 10.
oh, purpose of written notice?
Yeah. And basically saying it's not necessary to meet the legally required public notice. I'm super uncomfortable with that whole piece. I don't know that I actually agree that it's not required by state law. That's probably part of it. State law lets you determine how you give the notice, whether it's by first-class mail or registered mail or certified mail or whatever. I don't think you can just blow it off, is what I'm a little uncomfortable about. And that may be something that we need a legal opinion on there.
Okay.
But I just really not comfortable with that. And part of my rationale for not being comfortable with that is the purpose of written notice is to tell people who might be impacted by what's going on. And you've got the signs, which do you guys actually use the signs? Do you have them? The notice of,
We haven't had any cases to use
Okay.
signs.
that's kind of an optional thing in here also. And then we've got the legal ad that's in here that, how many of you read the 8-point legal ads in the newspaper? You got better eyesight than me, even with my glasses on.
More people than you think here.
Yeah. Nobody reads those. So while we're meeting the letter of the law with that legal ad, let's be honest and say people are not really keeping abreast of what's going on. A lot of people don't even get the newspaper anymore, being honest. So I'm real uncomfortable with not sending out written notices by mail to adjacent property owners about something that might potentially be happening right next to them. That seems like a huge invitation to contest your decision to me.
What do you consider, Jason? That's the other controversy we're talking about. You know, how How far do you go away from that parcel?
Yeah, that's something that you can just say we're only going to notify adjacent properties. You don't have to say we're going to go a quarter mile or a half mile or anything. That's up to you guys to decide. But at the very least, not telling.
I mean, you could have a property that's literally 100 feet away that's not maybe adjacent or, you know what I'm
You
saying?
can't. A lot of, their communities, they do it all differently. Some people will say anything that's within X number of feet. Some people will say the adjacent parcels only. Some people will say, some communities will say, 2 parcels deep all the way around.
What's the most common and what do you
Oh.
recommend?
I don't know. I would say one thing we could do is we could look at what your neighboring counties that you said you look at do and see what they use as a guideline. Scott and Jackson and Harrison, and see if there's any commonality there.
I made a note there to look at, what's written in there.
We're talking about notice, this is talking about written notice that the applicant is providing
They have to send out to the neighbors.
to the joint development. I don't think that is required by state law, is it?
Well, it's talking about, it says the plan director shall publish. I'm trying to figure out where this came from, if it's something that originated with us, or if it's whatever rules of procedure we sat down with. And I can tell you, to the extent that we put something like that in there, I think it would have been, and I don't remember, it would have been consistent with this goal, which is we want to be overly transparent where possible and encourage more notification than what's required, but by making it a mandate, and if we miss somebody, then we set ourselves up for a challenge by trying to do more than what's required. It's the only thing I can think of, because that's something.
I mean, what I would say is you do this, and if you miss somebody, if the applicant misses somebody, then it's continued a month, and that notification is done. I
But
think
this is
it's-
the applicant's.
Yeah, it's much
That doesn't
more,
make sense.
yeah. But I can check and see what the surrounding other counties do just by comparison. And, yeah, probably this is the thing I feel most uncomfortable about in the rules.
Well, I mean, rules of procedure, I understand, and I think that in the subdivision ordinance and also this, that there's language in one of those ordinances, not the rules of procedure, that talk about the notifications. And not saying that it's not been, I don't know why it was in there. I've heard, because it's been a couple of years since we did this rules of procedure, and I don't know particularly what that was, but I know that there's whether it's a confined feeding, or when we've got these operations that we classify as AFAs, we're establishing that they have to make notification.
I got a question. In your comment here, you said this is an extremely unusual policy I do not recommend it. Written notice should be required. Written notice is required. It says the applicant shall provide additional written notice in
Well,
22.
but if you keep reading through this, it's kind of saying, okay, you're supposed to try to give written notice, but if you really don't, it's okay.
I'm not getting that.
No, that's how if you read all these sections
Yeah, because
together.
four then turns around at him and says, written notice is not required by state law.
Right, by state law.
Oh,
But this is not state law.
oh,
This
the
is
same,
county- this is
same,
county
we're
law.
requiring.
Yeah, we require it when we say it shall provide, the applicant shall provide. There's no ifs, ands, or buts there, they shall do it. And then we're just going on to say, this is not state law, this is county law, we're requiring it, not the state. That's kind of the way I'm reading it. You see what I'm saying?
I do, and I sure didn't get that when I read through
It
that.
says written
Maybe.
notice shall not be considered.
All right, it needs to be worked on.
Okay,
Yeah.
we'll work on
I'll
that
acknowledge
section.
that.
I mean,
That's-
yeah.
And then the other thing that I wanted to add was basically an section F, which is what happens if there isn't proper notice given, once we can figure out what that proper notice is supposed to be. And that is that the commission would continue the petition, and the BZA would too, until the next regularly scheduled meeting to allow time for the unnotified to be properly notified, basically.
So you added the whole effective notice.
I added that hold effective notice as to what happens. And also, one thing that a lot of communities do, which I put in there, is that if someone shows up at the meeting and says, this should be continued because I didn't get notified about the meeting, then you can say, well, you obviously are here, so you know about the meeting. So you don't have to, if someone shows up, unless they convince you they need more time to make their case. The fact that they're there in person tells you that they knew about your meeting. So I'll let you guys consider whether you want to include that or not. Talk about special meetings a little bit. And special meetings could be something that I think that it should be the executive committee, not just two random members of the commission that get to call them. And you would have these either for informational purposes. Let's say you had a really controversial case. Maybe you want to have a pre-public hearing meeting to let people know what it's about. Maybe do some calming down, if you will, before the actual meeting. Or you might, if you get such a huge agenda, you might need to add some supplementary meetings. And so just talking about these special meetings, what they would be. And then the question would be, do you want to have requirements in place for under what circumstances you might call special meetings? For example, are there certain land uses that anytime you had that land use, you might want an informational meeting before you have the regular plan commission meeting? Are there, certain times that you would want to be able to add a second monthly meeting for the plan commission? If you got to a certain number of agendas on or applications on your agenda, for example, would you automatically kick in a second meeting? I know we're not really busy right now, but things ebb and flow, and you do have a provision in here which is really good about the late night meetings. There's something in there about the 10:30 provision. Basically, if you get to 10:30, we know our brains aren't working real well anymore, and you have written it into your rules that you can continue a meeting to another time if it gets to that late night hour. But this would be just kind of defining more what those special meetings would be and under what circumstances you could call them. And part of the reason about putting in there when you can have these special meetings is so that everybody and their brother doesn't come in and suddenly asking the plan commission to schedule a special meeting for them because they have some special project that they didn't get filed in time and needs to be addressed right away. And suddenly everybody's got a problem in a special project, and you guys have a meeting every night of the week to try to address some of that. So again, I know you're not busy now. This is more like what could happen in the future.
I think the special meetings language came right out of Title 36, if I remember it right.
Yeah.
And that's why we use it.
Yeah, and that's fine. But you can, in your rules, you can go a little bit further with that if you want to.
Okay.
And I'd like to make a motion for the planning commission board. Do you need to adjourn the
You guys never
BZA?
adjourn. You guys never adjourn.
But I'm talking about the BZA.
Well, I think we're both in session, actually, aren't we?
We are.
You guys never adjourn, you can do anything you want.
Mr. President, will you accept a motion at this time?
For what?
I'd like to, I had the word before me. Suspend the rules of, suspend the rules for the purpose of addressing an item under new business.
Okay. Is that appropriate, KK?
Yeah, you
Because
can,
we do have some business in that, and if I will suspend this off and let the next order of action to, for new business.
yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, I will take this as a motion to the Planning Commission to suspend the testimony from KK as far as on the rules of procedure at this point. In that, do you want to, I guess you need to adjourn and then,
We don't need to, we can just keep doing what we're doing. I second Jeff's motion.
all right, second, in that, it's open for discussion, seeing none, take it to a vote to suspend. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same, even though she doesn't like those voice votes. But with that, I'd like to go to a new order of business. Michael and Kelsey Gelfinger, if you would want to come up and then.
Do you want us to stand, sit down?
Whatever you feel comfortable about. I'd like for the order of business though.
Let's have them stand over here so that they're not sandwiched between us.
All right, well, for your, for the public record, in that, need your name, your address, for the public record.
Michael Gettelfinger, 901 South Jackson Street, Salem.
I'm Kelsey Gettelfinger, 6342 West Rosebud Road, Salem.
All right. Michael, the floor is yours.
Basically, I'm here to prove that my construction started before, our construction started before the new zoning ordinance took place, that I guess basically to say that we should be grandfathered in under the new ordinance. I have basically start dates from when they started moving dirt. I have my permits that were dated October 26, 2012. And I also have a completion invoice. I have my Rule 5. I don't know what everybody needs to see or wants to see.
All right.
When did you actually start constructing buildings?
Buildings started, I believe the actual date was somewhere around October the 15th. I don't know the exact when they, 2014.
No. Okay.
That was whenever they actually started, like concrete in the ground. Dirt work was started, like I said, October 31st when they actually started moving dirt of 2012.
As far as start date, I mean, isn't his original permitting date probably the most relevant thing?
Original permitting for,
Yeah.
yeah, see, the problem is our zoning ordinance wasn't adopted until between the time that he started moving dirt and then actually started construction on the buildings. So, they didn't, our last version of our zoning ordinance was adopted by the county commissioners, I think it was March 14th or 15th.
3/18/14.
Okay, 3/18 of 2014, and they didn't start building the buildings until 7 months later.
But there's no definition of start of construction as far as I know, so therefore, the state's start of construction as soon as you start moving dirt would take place October 31st, 2012.
He's completely right about that.
Now, the other thing is, all their setbacks, they're well within our limits. And when you consider that part of the process is moving dirt, and that was started before we had our ordinance, The only issue is he doesn't meet the 200-foot property line setback.
On the new one.
We have two of the new buildings are fine, one new building is 173 feet roughly. I mean,
Yeah. Do you have any advice for us here? Because
Well, I would like to point out that for the purpose of item, construction starts when you start moving dirt. I mean, he's 100% right about that.
and under ident, I don't know if you're up by the zoning, if there is a date that says, but technically, whenever I started, we have 2 years to start construction, 4 to complete from October 26, 2012, which we're well within that. Technically, we have to October 26, 2016 to finish.
Now, you've got 2 permits, right?
Yes.
Okay, you got one permit for 3 buildings and then another permit for another 3.
Yes.
And both of them were approved at the same time?
I know the first 3 buildings were approved on, it has a date on here. February 24, 2011
Okay,
was when the first 3 were approved.
okay, when was the second one approved?
October 26, 2012.
All right,
So about a year, well, close to 2 years.
okay. And you have dirt work that was done for both buildings. What was your date again on approval on your permit for the second building?
October 26, 2012.
Okay, when did you say you did dirt work for the second set of buildings?
We started Halloween,
Halloween.
October 31st, 2012.
And then you had completion of that dirt work, or it was a continuing?
The completion, when the actual dirt work was complete, was January 17, 2013. That's the invoice for being complete, as far as the dirt work.
Okay,
Well, if he started before we had our code, it doesn't apply to him.
if the only thing that he would have to meet would be the setback of the original ordinance,
which didn't include a property line setback.
which it did not, it was 750 from a resident.
Right, so he's good. He's not in violation of anything, the way I see it.
So that's where that's at. I mean, if you meet that requirement of that old ordinance, Michael?
Yeah, the old ordinance was 750 feet from a residence.
Right.
And technically, I guess my question is on that y'all might look at, I mean, does a residence in another county count? You know, I'm on the county line. So the next, we want to get into stipulations, you go into that, we're 1,350 feet, but if you go away from that, we're, about 3,000 feet from the next closest house.
Well, no, it actually would apply to a residence in another county. That would be my interpretation of the ordinance, because it doesn't say a residence in Washington County. It says a residence, and a residence is a residence.
Right.
But you're still good.
I mean, yeah, I'm not worried about it distance-wise, I'm still fine, but that's...
No,
I asked Michael to bring a timeline, because I thought it was very important to establish timeline. In our discussions that we've had here, I think that we need to have a definition that is when construction is. That's
Right.
the reason I'll bring that up.
And I would urge that we go with similar language to what the state uses, so we're not reinventing the wheel on that one.
Right.
Because the state says construction starts when you go out there and start moving dirt. That is what the state says, because I've been involved with, doing the earthwork for these things. And
I think a lot of that depends on what kind of permits you're issuing locally, because usually you want to tie that start to a local permit application of some kind. And my understanding is there wasn't a local permit required at that time. But from this point on, you need to tie it to some kind of a local permit application, the date that application is made.
Well, see, now, anybody doing what he's doing now would be required to come and get a permit before construction ever started. It would be when they were permitting
Yeah,
to build the building.
yes. But that way, that's kind of the standard when things start for the future that we'll want to build in there, so that if you amend your ordinance down the line or whatever, we know that they were grandfathered based on when that application for that permit was made.
Right.
Yeah.
Whatever we do in this, in this decision on this, is that I would like to have documentation of your start, complete, especially your dirt work, some of those timeline type of things. So we have a documentation to go with our decision that we make.
Yeah, have you got copies of your stuff?
He dropped this one.
I dropped off, that was start from Temples, and that's a copy of my Rule 5.
Yeah. Is there a completion invoice in there by chance?
There's not a completion. I have it here,
Yeah.
if there's a copy machine, or you could even have that one.
Yeah, we can do
No,
that.
We don't need that one. I mean,
All right. I think that we have, in my thought process with here, we are in a transitional period, between the old ordinance and the new ordinance. And I think some of the things, and not saying that we did our job as far as building inspector and taking a look at things and make sure everything is in compliance. The proof of the matter always goes back to the applicant, which you are the applicant, is to establish that timeline. That's not for us to establish. So whenever you had that new construction, even though there was a gap in there, between the first 3 buildings being put together and the last 3 buildings being put together, when did that construction actually stop? They start and stop. So that's the reason I wanted the timeline to be established. Now, so anyway, that's where I'm at.
So you understand, what happens is, we've got someone looking over the county and all of a sudden sees 3 new poultry barns going up and says, wait a minute, they never came in to check with me, get a permit or anything. And so he goes out there and starts looking, then he contacts me, and so that's how this happens. So I need you to come in here. It's not like you've been denied anything. There's been no permit applied for.
Yeah.
And so that's why
And I guess that is my argument to what I'm here, is that whether or not, I understand there hasn't been a permit applied, but my argument is that I shouldn't have to.
Yeah, you didn't need to, and
Yeah,
that's why.
I was started, long before it took
we don't
place.
know that until some
Yeah, and then I understand
documentation's
until there's a
presented.
timeline presented.
So I hate to make you jump
Yeah.
through this hoop, but we need to make you jump through this hoop. So,
Yeah, like I said, I feel like I have the documentation to prove, I actually have an aerial map, or picture of the thing from Magoo Earth that's dated 3/4 of 2013. So, I have a picture with a date, of a national company, or whatever you want to say, that says, you can see it's done. You can see the drive, you can see the pads, it's clear as day that is.
you say your second item permit, your second set of barns was approved when?
October 26th of 2012.
Okay.
If we have Michael to make us copies of that, put it in a file, and then for our records, the work anybody does question about the 3 buildings coming up, and the time frame of when.
Right, I think this needs to go in Travis's
Yes,
file.
it does.
Yeah, he
But
just
we just
needs
need to
to-
get, I think, though, I don't know that anything's actually been presented tonight. Do you have something you can show?
Yeah, let me review those.
All right, there's the copy of the permits. I don't know if
All
you
right,
want
now let's
everything
see the
else.
construction material. Our vote, that's the 3rd buildings that's in question, October 26th.
Yeah, that's the 3rd. And then there shows, there's a date on this page somewhere. It says when the old one's right there. February 24th was the approval of the first.
All right, pass that down for,
That's completion invoice, and there is That's just a work thing. The tempo keeps showing when they started. Site work actually started 10/31 of 12.
Okay, these are documents. I don't need to see the permit so much as I do these other things. Unless you want to, copy of the top letter of the permit might be applicable because it's got both dates on there, and then copies of these.
We'll just let him make us copies and drop them off
Yeah.
to Travis for our.
As for us to do it here at the meeting in there, as long as you have that supporting documents in there and we review that.
If you just make us copies so we put in the file showing the dates, then I think that would be satisfactory for ours. If there's any question comes up, we see proof of it, that the dates actually started before.
Right, and just one copy to put.
Yeah, just one.
But for KK, as far as you know in there, we need to get the clarification as far as.
For your records.
Yeah.
Just make us a copy, get Travis out of the.
Yeah, that's my problem.
That's my suggestion.
Okay, I'm looking for a motion to make it,
I move that we, based on evidence that, that
We acknowledge.
we acknowledge that he was perfectly in compliance by being before the ordinance.
okay, that motion, Danielle, second. Well, okay, good.
One copy to help.
All right, it's open for discussion.
Thank you.
Seeing none, we'll take this to a vote. Roll call vote. Will that make you happy, Dave? Okay, Dave? Okay. Jerry McCall?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mark?
Yes or aye?
Yes.
Yes.
Phil? Scott?
Yay.
Danielle?
Jeff Souter,
Yes.
yes.
Irvin?
Adam Duford, yay.
And myself, yay.
So you need.
All right, thank you, guys.
Well, you get the documentation in there. I've had some phone call conversations trying to tell you what the material is. And I want the county to know, as far as whenever we're doing this thing, we got not only confined people, we have residences and stuff, and trying to have balance. Instead of having all this done in the newspapers and stuff like this, to have it in a cordial type of meeting where those discussions are made in a manner, And I think that's where we're at. Travis did his job as far as acknowledging new buildings going up that were after a permit, let us know in that we didn't have a permit, but in the process, in their further investigation, which is the proof of the applicant, whether it's the old ordinance or not, which I asked for you to have acknowledged and done that, so we're in good.
That's his way of saying thanks.
Yeah, yeah. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Travis.
Okay, reorder of business, and that, start back in, bring it back to KK.
All right. How you guys doing?
Tired?
So I'm wondering, have I lost your, we need to pick this up next month, or do we want to keep soldiers?
Well, honestly, it is 9:15. I know Danielle shuts down at 9:30. I don't know.
8:40.
And
Well, some of us have to drive back to Indianapolis.
right, and I understand it's late.
We're exactly halfway through it.
Yeah.
I think that what we ought to do is make a point where we're at in that, and then we'll adjourn and pick up from that business right there.
Okay.
Is that appropriate for you?
Oh, it's fine for me, and then the BZA will actually get their own custom tailored memo.
All right,
So-
and so then you've got our notes for the other part in that, so that can be worked in, so.
Right, so I can assume that you want me at next month's meeting?
Yes, we do.
To kind of pick up on this, right?
All right,
All right.
I'm looking for a motion. To adjourn, Jeff has made the motion, we have second.
Second.
Man, oh God, my gosh, we're going to get second all day.
I was.
All in favor, signify by saying aye. All opposed,